you know, it'll be that notorious bike. But that shouldn't detract from the fact that it might be notorious, but it was glorious. Right, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. What are we doing today? Well, something a little bit special, because we are having it's going to be a tribute day, let's call it a tribute day, to what I still think is the last of the great British twins, in that real classic style and fashion, and the way it was put together. But it has that whiff of scandal about it, and because this bike's now gone out of production, I wanted to snaffle one up just to get it out for a couple of days and have a play on it and have a proper talk about this bike, because I think it's such a fabulous bike. It just captures, it's got everything, hasn't it? I say with that bit of scandal, but it's just achingly beautiful. It's a joy to ride. It's a bike that needs to be ridden hard, that really sort of comes alive when you open it up, and it screams British bike to me, this. And I know I'm going to get I'm going to get comments about that, but I just think it's just a fabulous bike. Oh my goodness me. So I think we should go and have a look around the bike, have a proper chat about it, and then go do some riding, because, you know, I don't want to waste any time out of the saddle on this thing, because this is just a stunning bike, absolutely stunning. Come on, let's go and talk Norton 961 SPs. Well, I enjoy this corner. Oh yeah. Right, so here it is, the Norton 961 SP, the Commando, and it's sort of a bike that probably should never existed, is it? You know, and I'm so glad that it did. We have this strange thing in this country that we're fantastic at building things, engineering, you know, mechanical stuff. You know, there's nobody better. You know, that's why all Formula One cars are built in the UK, pretty much. And then we can somehow manufacture something as beautiful as this. But the bit we always seem to get wrong, or sometimes get wrong, it's the finance side of it, isn't it? It's the money side of it. It's where it all goes pear-shaped, isn't it? But there's always that joy that these things do exist at the end of the day. I know that the story with Norton, when it was sort of reborn, if you like, a little bit, you know, it went through these extraordinary financial woes. You know, this bike was built, and they also built the Dominator, didn't they? And I'm going to come back to the Dominator in a minute. And then there was that V4. Was it the V4 that was built? And then we had the fantastic Alan Milliard has rebuilt that, hasn't he? There were things like that going on, you know, and that costs money. But the problem we have is that with all those things going on, there always ends up a certain sort of whiff of some sort of financial shenanigans going on, isn't there? Almost where they think that you know, is the company going under? There's lots of money floating around. These people start with great intention, and then it just doesn't quite work, does it? Is when you think of the Dominators, and I think the Dominator was based on this engine. You look at the price of those Dominators now. I was looking yesterday. I saw 3 for sale. All in the listings, all saying ultra rare bike, which it is. I think the cheapest one was 25,000 for that. You know, and it's its rarity, obviously, that's hiking the price a little bit. But you've got to think, you know, where will these be, you know, in a few years' time? I don't think they're ever going to drop below their selling price. I really don't think they will. And I think the demand for these is going to skyrocket now that there's very unlikely in the country any new ones left. But because you've now got TVS as a backup with your warranty and spares and repairs, you know, I think that's great. That's really good. And it makes them actually a very attractive buy. at this point. But this bike in particular, I think the problem it had was there was a few issues around some of the bits of the quality items, you know, some of the quality control, if you like, wasn't there really? But the actual bones of the bike, you know, was phenomenal, because you had it was like getting the best components again. It was a bit like, I'm not saying this completely compared to this, but when you think of Brush Superior, they were buying, he wasn't really building anything as such, was he? He was just getting all the best parts of everything, the best engine, the best suspension, the best brakes, everything, and fixing them to a bike, and it's just making it the best possible. And there's a little bit of the air of that about this bike. You know, when you look at the Olin suspension, the huge Brembo brakes, and all the rest of it, and it was just, someone had a real vision to do this. And they had the engine built, this stunning engine, which was built on total classic lines. I popped in to see Dave at Boulder on the way back from picking this up, just to let him have a look. And he said, oh yeah, I had to do some work on one of these engines. He said it was a great engine to work on. He said it was really straightforward. He said much better than the early Nortons, he said. And when you bring this up today, you know, TVS, the Indian company TVS, and we know how there's some really large institutions in India now, either sort of based on steel and that sort of stuff, that they wanted to put money into these sort of brands, and Norton was one of those ones, a bit like BSA, but Norton was one of those that they wanted to keep alive. And the extraordinary thing is with TVS and this bike is that it would have been very easy to abandon this bike. I think it would just to let it sort of die out, and just you know, it's got a terrible history. Let's just move on. But they didn't, you know, and I think that really bodes well for the future for Norton, because I think they showed faith in this bike, and they were prepared to put their money into it. Because I can tell you for now, they are losing money on every one of these, because the amount of re-engineering that was done once TVS took over, there was work done to the engine. They had to put new tanks on, because the original tanks were suffering with degrading from the new type of fuels that we have. So they had to put new tanks on. It was a colossal investment. So you got to think, and that, you know, they're making sure that the bikes can be serviced and warranted and all the rest of it. So you've got to give sort of some a round of applause to TVS for doing that, and that they still support this bike, and it's still out there. And I just think it's great that these things exist.
So why is the bike actually like to ride? It's like nothing else. Let's put it that way. You're not going to get on this and be sort of, you know, not that you can be blindfolded and think, oh, I think that's a, you know exactly what it is, because there's nothing else like this. That engine just sits in the mix there, like this. It's like an animal. This engine. It wants to be revved. It doesn't like sitting, you know, plodding along. And if you want to buy this just for a Sunday afternoon plod, you know, yeah, it'll do it. But it's a bike that you need to go out and open it up, because it just has, it's sort of like eager for you to do that. It wants you to just open a throttle and really get what that engine was designed for. And that was to be in the sort of high revs, because it produces all its torque and its power, and it's just, and the sound this thing makes. I can imagine when you're doing overtakes on this, particularly other motorbikes or slow cars, when you open the throttle, it must put the fear of God into people. It's so nice. You know, the position, I'm not in the CAF Racer version here, so, you know, I'm still leaning forward with this, but it's sort of, it fits it. I think if you sat on this bike and you had a bit of a sit up and beg, I'd think, oh, that's not designed to, you know, that's not making me want to go a little bit quicker, you know, make the most of the speed limits. Whereas in this position it does, but I can't recollect anything similar to this. Probably, if I was really pushed, I'd say it's probably a little bit like my Monster was, a little bit like my Monster. But it just, God, it just wants to ride this bike. It just wants you to ride. It's absolutely superb. And it's not a difficult bike to ride. I think that's quite important. It's not actually difficult at all. It's the only thing I would say with it is it's got that really sort of slow turning circle, or that sort of minimal turning circle like a bike like this has. And that was very reminiscent of my Ducati. And by that I mean, you know, if you're manoeuvring it around, if you're coming into a car park and you want to sort of, you're slow waddling it, it's quite hard work. Because it doesn't want to. You got very little lock on the steering with this bike, very little lock. But you sort of forgive it that, you know, because that's not what it's for. The bike isn't designed for that. You know, it's designed for country roads, you know, A roads, just those roads, you know, where you get the, like we're coming up to now, you get the nationals come up. It just needs to be, wow, way. It just rewards you. Once you open it up, it's like, oh yeah, yeah. That's what it was designed for.
When TVS got involved with the Norton, I think they brought it up to what it should have been. They brought the bike to where it should have been, really, in the end. And in talking at the end, that is the thing. You won't get another bike built like this again. This was the last time you're going to see a motorbike like this, because it's just too expensive to do. You know, it's either got to be absolutely boutique and niche, and you will find some boutique brands doing this. You know, there's that two-stroke, isn't there, on those sort of bikes. But a major manufacturer just won't do this again. They sort of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with this, and they're not going to do that again. You know where we are now with Norton. You know, we've got the new Atlas out, and we've got the Manx R and those sort of bikes. So we're going to see new bikes coming through, but they're going to be modern bikes. They're not going to be built on a historical sort of note, are they? In history, it's new, and people want that. I think there's enough of these sort of old style bikes out there. But when you think of this one, I think I wanted to sort of recognise the passing in history of this bike in particular, because I just think it's an end of an era, isn't it? There won't be anybody else who's going to sort of come up with, you know, buying a name of an old manufacturer and sort of resurrecting it to the standard that this was done, or to the scope of this, you know, having the factory and all the rest of it. It's not going to happen. There's nobody out there to invest like that, because there's not the market for it. It's not a big enough market. But the interesting thing about market, and this is where Southdowns come into this, because they bought the remaining stock of these, all the remaining bikes, all those TVS re-engineered bikes, all went to Southdown, and they've just done their new offer on those bikes. It was £69 down and £69 a month for 2 years, and you could have this bike. And they sold it like that. They just went, boom, yeah, gone. And there was a lot of disappointed people. And it's sort of sad that they had to wait for an offer like that to come along to make people want to buy it. It's so cheap. I think I worked out the price of that bike, because you know you'd have to have 2 services done, and I think the servicing was going to work out about £600 odd for the 2 years, because you had to have the valve check done, all the rest of it. So that was pretty commensurate with most other bikes. You know, that wasn't out of the way, because I think it's almost an engine out job. It's quite a major thing. But when you factored in the £69 a month over 2 years, it was only sort of £2,500, or not even £2,500. That's not even a depreciation of a Chinese adventure bike, is it? Which is probably £2,500 over sort of like 2 months, not 2 years. And I can fully understand why people suddenly thought, yeah, I'm going to have that, because boy, just imagine this was your last bike. This was going to be your last bike you will have, and I'm going to ride for another 2 years. And someone said to you, well, you can have this one at £69 a month. You interested? You're not even going to think twice, are you? You know, that's not, what is that now? Is that 3 packets of fags? I don't know. I know what I'd rather have. Just absolutely extraordinary bike. And I just think it's a sad day to think that this will be the last we'll ever see of this type of bike again. There's no way anybody's going to build anything like this again. There really isn't. And that whiff of scandal, you know, that sort of thing about scandal and stuff. And I don't think that's going to hurt a bike like this. I think it's going to keep people talking about it. It's going to keep the bike relevant. And, you know, it didn't hurt DeLorean, did it? It didn't hurt the price of DeLorean cars with that scandal that he had. And it's all very similar, is it? You know, it's the people like that little edge with their bike, and it's something you can talk about. And I think this bike does that. But I've been tankering around on this today, do you know, and I know I'm absolutely soaked. You probably look, because my whole jacket is soaked. But I've been loving it. The roads are drying out. Come on, let's go and have a final ride round on it and just have a final chat about this bike, because it really is one of the coolest things on the road. It really is. It's got a sort of Terry Thomas sort of hello about it, isn't it? I just think it's awesome.
Right, so what are my final thoughts on the tribute to the Norton 961 SP? Well, I think at the end of the day, if you ever thought about buying one of these, I think you'll be kicking yourself. Why didn't you buy one when they were pretty much giving the darn things away? Because it's a beautiful piece of British history, of motorbiking history. This will go down in the annals of, you know, motorcycling folklore, isn't it? You know, the bike that, you know, the beautiful British twin that somebody had the vision to build. It all went a bit pear-shaped, but it existed. And you know that every museum that will have one of these in the future, every motorbike museum, you know, it'll be that notorious bike. But that shouldn't detract from the fact that it might have been notorious, but it was glorious. And I think that's what I like to say about this bike. I'm amazed that it existed, that it even came into existence. But aren't we lucky that people were prepared to do this, you know, whatever their motives were at the end. But it still exists, and the company still exists, you know, in its present form. And I'm not going to argue the point about, you know, the owners and all the rest of it. You know, I think we're just lucky that people are prepared to put some money into it. And I think Norton will be a good player. I think it'll be an important player, certainly in the UK market. You know, in a world where, you know, there's so little new, isn't there, to be produced. You know, it's like music, isn't it? It's all been done before, and to find your unique, you know, your USP gets harder and harder. It's almost impossible, isn't it? But I think Norton have done that, you know. And when you look at this bike, you now see where they're going with this bike. And I think it's a good thing. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's a funny legacy, isn't it? It's like a midlife legacy, isn't it, this bike? But one I think that should be applauded, you know. And why not? Nothing wrong with that, is there? Nothing wrong with a bit of shenanigans, is there? When you're building something. Right, thanks for that. I'm going to roar off into the sunset, or certainly into the rain anyway. And I'll see you next time. Look after yourselves. Take care.